What's up everybody, welcome back. So in today's video I want to have a look at adding our inventory system to another project. So I already have a video up about how to add it to the multiplayer game project from the YouTube channel, but if you want to add it to your own project or a default new project, for example, that's a lot less work. So I'm gonna do that in this video so you know how to do that as well. So let's just start. Over here I have a default third-person example project, and in here I'm gonna add the multiplayer inventory project. So before we start migrating any files, we want to go to our project settings and we want to check some collisions. So go to the collision tab, and over here we want to add an object channel. So let's create a new object channel, and I'm gonna call this pickup item. And the default response is going to be overlap, and then accept it. And then we also want to create a new preset. So we're going to go to the presets, expand it, and create a new one. And this is going to be the pickup profile. And then for collision, we're going to set query only. And then the object type is going to be our new pickup item. And for the description, we can say something like the trigger for a pickup. And then for the responses, we want to set everything to overlap, and for the traces, we can ignore them. So make sure traces ignore and all the objects overlap, and then we're going to accept that. So make sure you use these exact names for the object channel and for the profile, because these are the names that are used in the inventory project. So if we create them before we migrate the files, we make sure that everything migrates correctly. So we have those set up, and then we can open up our multiplayer inventory project so we can start migrating it. So this is the project with just the components in there and all of the other stuff removed. So we're simply going to select all three of the folders in here and migrate them. Yeah, that's fine. And select the correct project. So for me, that's my third-person example project, and then the content folder. So those are migrated, and we don't need the inventory project anymore, so we can close that down. So let's make sure that our collision actually works. So we're going to go to the inventory folder and then open our BP pickup. There we go. So if we select the box trigger in here, we want to make sure that it's actually using our collision preset, the pickup profile, and the object type is the pickup item. So if this is correct, then the collision settings in your project file are correct as well. So now we can start adding stuff. So let's close this down. First of all, let's go to our game mode. So we're going to go to the third person folder blueprints. And we want to actually create a player controller as well. So let's do that first. We're going to right click, create a new blueprint class, and simply select the player controller. So this is going to be our BP third person controller. And let's open this one up first. So we want to add our component. So we're going to add a new component and look for the BP inventory component controller. And simply add it to the player controller, compile and save. Then we can open up our third person game mode, and we want to make sure that we actually use the correct player controller. So we're going to select our new BP third person controller. And then we're going to open the full blueprint editor, and in here we also want to add a component, and this time we want to add the BP inventory game mode component. And again, we can compile and save it. And the last component we need to add is in our character. So let's open the character in your project file, and over here again add a component, and this time look for the inventory character component. And make sure you add that one. So with this in place, let's compile and save. And then if we open up the inventory character component, you will see there's two inputs missing. So we're going to add the inputs in the project file, one for interact and one to toggle our inventory. So let's close it down, go to edit project settings and go to inputs, and we're going to create two new action mappings. So the first one is going to be interact, and I'm going to use the F key on the keyboard. And then for the second one, that's going to be toggle inventory, and let's use the tab key. There we go. So now if we open up our inventory component character, we should be able to compile and get rid of the warnings. So that's working as well. So now that we have that in place, we can add some components to our character. So let's go to the character in your project. And first I'm going to add an arrow component. So just look for arrow. So this is going to be the location where items are thrown from if we drop them from our inventory. So I'm going to call this the throw item direction. And let's make sure that it's outside of our capsule component, and then I'm going to angle it up a little bit. So something like that should work. Now, one important thing for this component is that we set the correct tag. So with the component selected, you want to set the component tag on the right side. And you want to enter inventory comp, so COMP from component. And this will make sure that our inventory system actually can find the correct component. So make sure this tag is in place. And then I'm going to select the character again, and I'm going to add a sphere collision. So this is going to be my interactable detection sphere. And this is actually used to display the names of the pickups in the level above the actual pickup. So it's not really for picking up items, it's only for showing the names above them. So I'm going to set the radius over here and make that something like 500. And then we also want to set the collision. So let's scroll down and go to the collision presets. And over here, we want to make them custom. And then we're simply going to ignore everything and only overlap our pickup item. So pickup item overlap, ignore everything else. And that should be good to go as well. And then the last thing you want to do is go to your character mesh. And over here for the collision, you want to make sure that you have generate overlap events enabled. So let's make sure that's ticked. So this will make sure that you can pick up an item if you're overlapping it with your character mesh. You can also use a box trace or a sphere trace or an overlap like a component. So you can set it up differently if you want. For this example, I'm going to use the character mesh. So compile and save it, and then we can set up our event graph. So let's go to the character event graph, and in here we're going to add event begin play. So we added the sphere collision, and we only use that for the pickup names like I mentioned, and the pickup names will only be visible for the local instance of the player. So for all other instances of the character, we can actually get rid of the component so it doesn't fire the overlap events and we don't need them on those instances of the character. So we're going to grab a branch and we're going to check if we are locally controlled. So is locally controlled. And if this is false, then we're going to grab our interactable detection sphere and we're going to destroy the component. So this will make sure only our local character has the interactable detection sphere and only the local character will see the names above the pickup. So then we also want to add overlap events. So we're going to grab our interactable detection sphere and we're going to add the begin and end overlap events. So just add both of them. And this one. So let's go over here And then for these events, we simply want to drag in our component, so the character inventory component. And then if we look for the sphere, for example, we have begin overlap sphere. So we can simply call this event and hook it up and pass on the overlapping actor. And do the same thing for end overlap. So again, look for sphere, and we have an end overlap sphere event here. So just hook it up. And then to make the mesh overlap work, we're going to do the same. So select the character mesh, and again, we're going to add the begin overlap event and the end overlap event. So let's move them over here again. And then again, we can grab our inventory component character and look for mesh. And then we have begin overlap mesh, so we can hook that one up. And the same for the end overlap. And plug them in like this. So this is everything you need to add to the character to make your inventory system work. So let's compile and save that one. And now all we need to do is make sure that a few other things are in place. So first of all, let's take a look at the inventory component game mode. So let's open the game mode component. And in here, in the event graph begin play, we call a function called spawn dynamic loot. So if we open this up, this will simply spawn 2 orbs and a crate inside of the level. And those will be spawned at these locations. So if you use the third person or first person example level, those will probably work. But if you use your own level, just make sure these are not outside of the bounds of your level. And you can also just get rid of the event here if you don't want to spawn any loot at all. So that's in the game mode inventory component. Then we also have our debug item-counter that we want to fix. So we're going to go to the widgets folder of the inventory. And in here we have the in-game HUD. So we're going to open that up. Go to the graph. And inside of the graph we have a function called Debug Item-Counter. So open that one up. And in here you will see there's one branch that's disconnected. So in here we need to enter the character class of your project. So in this case that's the third person character. After you did that, you can hook up the for each loop again. And then from your character you're gonna get the inventory component. And from that component you can plug it into the player inventory over here, and this will make sure that the item counter works. So now you can compile and save the HUD as well. So with all of that stuff done, we need to make sure that we actually have pickups in our level. So let's grab a viewport in here. And to actually make the system work, you need at least one container in your level. So let's go to the inventory folder and we're going to add a BP container. And then I'm also going to grab a BP pickup and also put it in the level. So for the pickup, let's start with that one first. So we can open up the pickup item info table, and in here we have the item row names, and these are the names we can use for the pickups. And you also want to make sure that you check out the stack sizes. So our orb can have a stack of 3, our fans can have a stack of 2, and our dishes cannot stack. So those are limited to 1. So with the pickup selected in the details panel, we can set whatever pickup we want it to be. So this can be a fan. And then we want to add an item content array and simply type fan again. So again, that refers to the data table and then the amount of fans in this pickup. So let's duplicate it and let's make the other one an orb, for example. And then we're going to have 3 orbs in this stack. So those are the pickups. And then for the container, if you have it selected, again, you have a row name. So if you open up the container types table, in here you can enter different types of containers with different sizes of inventory and different meshes. So I'm going to use the crate for this container. So in the details panel, simply enter the row name, so that's great. And then for the container contents, we can add an array. So let's put 2 more orbs inside of this container. And then let's also put a dish in here. So you will also see the temporary refresh contents, and you can simply ignore that. You don't need to put anything in here. So this will make sure the crate and the pickup are actually working. So let's save everything and let's test this. So I'm just gonna hit play, and here we go. We have our inventory working. So if I press the tab key, it will bring up the inventory, and I should be able to pick up these items, for example. So 2 fans and 3 orbs, and I've got them in my inventory. So let's check out our crate, and that's also here, and I can take the items. So these are the items that come from the spawn dynamic loot function. So those are over here. That's why I didn't add them to the map, but they are still here. So that seems to be working. And I can also drop items, for example, and split the stack. So this is all good to go. We have our inventory system added. So there is one little side note. So after we did this, and for example, we go into the viewport and we want to add a new pickup. So, or let's add a container. So let's drop a container in here. And now if I want this to update, I need to make sure that I delete the save game from my project. So if I would play it right now, it will simply load the save game from our previous save, and the container is not here. Because we changed all of that stuff, we threw this dish out here and it saved that, and it doesn't know about the container yet. So what you want to do is go to the Explorer and then make sure that you are inside of the folder from your project, and then go to saved, save games, and you want to delete the map file and probably the inventory from the player as well, to make sure all of the numbers of the items match up again. So simply get rid of everything in here. And then if we launch it again, our new container is in place. So that's how that stuff works. So that's all you need to do to migrate it into another project. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, and I'll be back soon for more. Talk to you later, guys. Bye bye.